Hello, I'm Clayton Burch, State Superintendent of Schools. This week we've released the guidance on back to school. Many of you might have been able to see the governor's press conference, and then here at the Department of Education we held a press conference with Bernie Dolan from the SSAC and Vice President Tom Campbell from the West Virginia Board of Education. This week's Keeping Connected, we really want to talk a little bit more about the guidance and what it means to come back to school. We know that we're in a very different place than we were last year. Last year we still had a lot of unknowns. We were in a place where we were waiting for a vaccination and whether or not schools should be open or closed. But throughout this year, I think our school leaders and our educators and parents, we've actually learned a lot about the virus, how it's transmitted, how to protect ourselves, and most importantly, I think we've learned exactly what our children need. And I've said it a lot in the last couple weeks, in the last several months. If ever in the history of education we don't understand the power a teacher has in the daily lives of a child, I hope we realize that now. Our children need consistency in their lives. They need others in their lives. They're just not wired to be alone. And even though we want parents to have the options to make the decisions that's best for their children, we know that the vast majority of children in the state need to be in school 5 days a week with their peers, with their educators. It's the safest place for them. During the pandemic, we've seen our children suffer quite a bit. We've heard folks talk about the social emotional toll it's taken on them, in some cases physical toll. And our teachers are going to be prepared as we enter back into school to be supporting our children as they come back and join. Nearly 50,000 children last year were not in a brick and mortar school. And as they come and rejoin their peers, we want to be mindful of our youngest learners, our elementary, our middle school, our high school, and each have unique needs as they enter school. I want to take a little bit of time to talk about the guidance document that we've released and add some clarifications that from the press conference this week. First and foremost, we know the best protection that our children have and our staff, teachers, is the vaccination. And I really, want those to say that, understand that for children 12 and under, it is not yet approved. There is not a vaccination. So to protect them, the only way to protect them is to make sure that the adults in their lives, whether it be at school or at home, are vaccinated. In order to fight this disease, we must have more and more adults willing to take the vaccination to curb the transmission, and that is a way to protect our youngest children. However, we're still going to be following 7 key mitigation strategies. As I stated, the first one is the vaccination, but the other 6 are just as important. We want to continue focusing on cleaning and hygiene, making sure our schools have everything they need to make sure surfaces, the school itself, is as clean and sanitized as possible, not just for COVID, but for every other illness and disease that we do face in our school systems. We want to continue making sure our children and staff have everything they need for hand sanitizing, continuing to follow best practices for coughing and colds and etiquette. We want to make sure that our local school districts are evaluating large gatherings and children when they're outside their core groups. We know that many are going to continue focusing on social distancing of at least 3 feet. Even though there is not a statewide mask mandate, many of our students and staff may feel for their own personal protection they want to continue utilizing a mask, and we encourage that. The CDC encourages it. However, that will be a local school decision. And then finally, there still will be contact tracing. Contact tracing, mask mandates, several asked, last year did the Board of Education place a mask mandate on our schools, and the answer is no. That was actually under the governor's executive order, and that is actually a health decision. And so we will continue monitoring and work hand in hand with our state health officials, our local health officials, and of course the governor, if there is any types of mandates that come forward. This year, because of what we've learned, we're asking our local districts, our superintendents, and local school boards to work with their local health officials. We think those decisions are best made locally so that we're not putting blanket mandates on the entire state or sometimes on an entire county. Our superintendents have experience pinpointing exactly the needs of their county. We deal with this in the past on flu outbreaks. We've seen individual schools or classrooms have to close due to a flu outbreak, and we're asking our superintendents to step up and make sure that they give that same consideration to this virus now. Use their knowledge of what they know about the virus, work with their partners in their community to really pinpoint where additional mitigation strategies may need to be and for how long. Now, Bernie Dolan did join us from the SSAC. All of these guidance and recommendations will actually be part of extracurricular. And one thing that Bernie and I both spoke of, as well as President Campbell, is the quarantine and contact tracing. Different than last year is, first and foremost, if a student or a teacher is vaccinated, they will not have to be quarantined and miss out on school and or work. Secondly, if students are wearing masks, individual students that are part of a contact tracing wear a mask, as long as both students have a mask, there would not be quarantining for them either. So those are some key differences that we are looking at this year as we look at this year's guidance of entering school. These same mitigation strategies have been used during the summer as thousands of kids across the state have participated in summer soul programs or sports, band, back to conditioning. We've seen very, very minimal outbreaks, but that does not mean we will not monitor any spikes in transmissions or in the communities to adjust the mitigation strategies as we talked about. We are hopeful that in the future we will see additional FDA approval for more vaccines. I know the next round we're looking at is during this school year. There's a possibility of our 5 through 12 children having access, but right now it is for 12 and above. And again, the vaccination, as we've heard Dr. Marsh, our health officials, both at the state and federal level, and the governor talk, is our best mitigation strategy. With that in mind, we have offered, and in consultation with the governor, we will be doing an I Got Vax WV campaign and competition. Many students have reached out talking about what the vaccination means to them. We've been posting those online. But we're going to run a competition through October, and 12 schools will win a grant of $50,000 just for their school for the highest percentages of vaccination. So again, that those incentives are there, and it's also not just an incentive, it is to recognize how important that the more people we get vaccinated, the less likelihood that we have this disease spreading rampant in our schools, our communities. So with that, I thank you very much. Please, I encourage you to go to the West Virginia Department of Education website. You can see the full guidance document. We have a COVID link there for outbreaks that we'll track throughout the school year, and any updates from our health officials, both state and federal, we'll be sure to post. Thank you very much.